Okay, I'm just going to do this. Okay. Here we go. Last episode of the season.
Oh, really?
I'm finally free. Hi, and thank you for tuning into Factbird's Manufacturing Matters podcast. Before we get into this week's episode, I've got a little bit of promotion. There's an event coming up called Factbird Forward on December 4th. It's really exciting. So it's an event where we're going to show off what's happening with our product suite going forward. So in 2025, we've got a really exciting roadmap with some new features that we're going to show off. And it's also talking about the future of manufacturing intelligence and where we see that going in the future. It's going to be a great event. There's the in-person event in Copenhagen that you can join at Copenhagen Distillery, or you can also stream it online. All you have to do is go to factbird.com/factbird-forward to find out more, register your interest, and I hope to see you there. Enjoy the episode. Hi, and welcome to Factbird's Manufacturing Matters podcast. Today I'll be talking to Søren. Hi, Søren.
Hi, Michael.
Søren's the CEO of Factbird, and we're going to be talking about trends for 2025 beyond, specifically looking at how these trends are going to impact the shop floor. So I thought, what better person to have in today than Søren? He's the guy that's got to have an eye on what's happening in the future in the market.
Yeah.
Recently went to Boston to speak to LNS Research.
Yeah, absolutely.
Busy man.
At the moment, very busy.
Would you like to tell us a bit about yourself before we get into it?
Yeah, I can do that. So, CEO of Factbird, been with the company for 3 years. It's been an amazing journey, transforming from a startup to a scale-up. Talk to too many customers to count, listening to their problems, trying to help them transform their businesses whilst also transforming our own business.
Yeah.
How granular and detailed do you want to be about me?
That's good.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
You got a good history in working at tech companies as well. So.
Yeah, more than 20 years.
So Søren knows his stuff, and that's why we're going to talk to him about trends. Looking at the top level, the macro level, what do you see as the sort of risks that people see first going into 2025 and beyond?
Yeah, I think these are pretty generic if we're looking on a macro level, and they will apply to manufacturing as well as on other industries.
Yep.
But there's certainly something about the geopolitical, economical challenges in the world that we live in today, something that's on the mind of pretty much all of our enterprise customers and customers in general. That's a big topic. We're seeing, and it's the ebb and flow, right? It goes and comes in different strength. But right now we're seeing a huge concern about some of the movements in Europe, some of the movements in the Middle East, potential risk of what may not happen in Asia. And of course, we have a changing situation in the US that we all need to understand a bit more.
Yeah.
So that's talk of town. There's another mega trend or potential mega risk, if you want to talk about it like that, related to the aging workforce. Manufacturing traditionally has benefited from a high degree of skilled workers and a lot of tacit knowledge on the shop floor. That generation is slowly moving out of the job market, being replaced by a new generation that do not have the same loyalty to their employer as the former, and they're simply changing jobs more rapidly.
More mobile.
Highly flexible. They're demanding more, and I'm not saying manufacturing is not sexy anymore, but we are seeing some concerning trends and challenging related to how long a given employee is staying in the given company, and especially on the shop floor, which puts new challenges to the employer and the manufacturers in terms of how do you capture that knowledge, how to retain it when people that has all the knowledge hasn't documented, and the people coming in are staying for a short period of time. So that's for sure a challenge that we have a lot of great talks about how to mitigate.
Yeah, there's these people that have worked in a factory for years, right? And they just kind of know why something's going wrong.
They can hear it, they can feel it, they can sense it. And, it's quite remarkable actually be on the shop floor, and you can tell on, let's say, maintenance or the operators if something is about to go wrong before it happens, and you can just go, well, how do you know? I just feel it.
Yeah.
It's stronger than the relationship with my wife. She feels it too, but they feel it on a machine level, which is quite cool.
Yeah. So it's just this sort of muscle memory, or just this, just working with something for so long, you kind of know it. And how do you capture that?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Another challenge that we're seeing, and I'm not saying this is related. It could be related to the geopolitical uncertainties of the world, but cybersecurity is a big thing that we're seeing about. It's partially introduced also with Industry 4.0 and all the technologies that is now introduced to the organizations, and that's going really fast, right? And by deploying technology really fast, and maybe without, let's say, the master plan, you're opening doors that you should really not leave open. And that's we see a lot of conversation about, okay, how do we clean that up? Where should we be? What does good look like? So that's something that's on the mind on many of our larger customers as well.
Yeah, it's interesting how the biggest risk there with cybersecurity is people. Yeah. So phishing attacks, somebody's sending an email saying like, hey, it's the CEO, can you...
Well, it even happens to us, right?
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Apparently I send text messages and emails all the time asking for, vouchers, and, transfer of money and what have you.
Poorly written, although it's getting better.
Well, it's getting a lot better. And I think, with the introduction of artificial intelligence and Gen AI, you can get some quite creative messages sent out there, and then that's of course posing a huge threat.
Exactly.
But I think we're getting better in just understanding, just the awareness about that this is happening. And this is a threat. Will drive the right behavior.
Yeah. On one hand, we have better tools and awareness and how to fight it. On the other hand, the people trying to do it have better tools. But so that's how it is. And the more digitized we are, the more information people can get.
Another mega trend that I think is worth mentioning, and in the days of this podcast, there's a COP29 happening in Baku.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Yeah. So, and I think all depending again where in the world that you sort of have your focus. I don't think anyone can shy away from the fact that sustainability and ESG is on everyone's mind. If you believe in climate changes or not, something is happening.
Exactly.
And for that reason, governments of sorts are imposing new regulations and new rules to mitigate that. And if you read, again, enterprise annual reports and are talking to C-level executives, everyone's talking about, okay, that's all great. Is sustainable. What can I do about energy utilization? What about consumption? Is there anything we can talk about? Is there anything you can do to mitigate on those areas? So I think from an ESG expectations perspective, there's a willingness to explore and look into this without necessarily have this is all new. So there's not a clear path to compliance and great ESG initiatives, but it's getting more and more. The last one, if we're talking about megatrends, and I don't know if it's even worth mentioning, but you cannot talk to any leader without them mentioning competitiveness. I mean, let's be honest. We all serve a shareholder of sorts somewhere. Even the biggest of companies serve a shareholder or a set of shareholders, and with the few exceptions, they're all in it to make money and make a profit. And competitiveness and staying relevant in the market by having the right products and the right quality at the right price and the agility to delivery translated into competitiveness. This obviously on the minds of all of our customers.
How do you keep your market share?
Inclusive. How do you keep your market share? How do you expand your market share? Those are some of the selected mega trends and movements in the market.
Yeah, you can definitely drill down into all of them. Each one's worth good 30-minute chat easily. But we did this analysis, right, of people's annual reports, big companies, and those are the trends of what they're seeing as risk factors. So that's really good. So let's take those macro level, high level trends that maybe the CEO is thinking about, and let's apply that to what people actually running factories are thinking about.
The real people.
The real people. It wasn't me that said that. The people with their hands on the keys, not these CEO types. No. Very important strategy and execution. So what is the reality there? So how does this all translate into the shop floor? What are the risks and challenges that they're seeing because of these macro trends?
Yeah, I think if you start at the ladder and the ladder being competitiveness, and then you can work up and you can go into all branches of the challenges. But at the end of the day, if you want to stay relevant and solve all of the other challenges, you got to start with figuring out how you run a smooth operations. How do you have the healthy level of cost, and how you as effective or efficient as an organization as possible. That's where we need to start. I think so. In terms of the challenges on a plant level, on a facility level, on a line level, even if you want to go to that level, is to understand how do I compare against those two parameters: effectiveness and reducing waste or removing cost, if you like. And I think it's not because we don't have access to data. We actually have access to a lot of data that in some capacities can guide us in the right direction. But often the challenges of the facilities of the plants is, what does good look like? Where do I need to be? If the challenge or the objective is to reduce cost and increase effectiveness, by how much? Where do I look? Where do I start? And we've been talking about Industry 4.0 for since 2011. I think was when the concept started coming out. So we know the design of Industry 4.0 and what we need to achieve with it, and been in many cases been investing and moving in the direction of Industry 4.0 for 10 plus years.
Connected cyber physical systems, whatever.
Robotics, ops centers, interconnectivity, industrial IoTs, a lot of things that makes us more efficient. Going on the next industrial revolution. And people are already now talking about Industry 5.0, but I can tell you there's a lot of people that have not succeeded with Industry 4.0 yet.
People do not want to hear about Industry 5 yet, I've noticed. In manufacturing, is still like figuring out digitization.
It's fair enough, right? Fair enough. And I guess we can at some point get back to Industry 4.0 or 5.0 or artificial intelligence and the threats and opportunities that lies in that. But yes, Industry 4.0 is still a force to be reckoned with, and something you want as an organization to get your hands around and master. But where do you start? How do you prioritize? What does good look like? Asking the questions to many of the plant managers or industry leaders running manufacturing is, what is your biggest problem right now? And how do you prioritize? What do you want to do about it? What should be doing about it?
Keeping it simple like that.
Keeping it very simple like that is difficult to get a firm answer to. As I mentioned, it's not because we don't have access to data. We have data. But the data is not live necessarily. It's not something that can. It's not proactive. And looking at production data that is a week old, let alone a month old, but in some cases a day old. You can't use it for a lot.
No,
honestly, you need to have it now. You need to act now. So I think that's definitely what some of the challenges that we're facing. And then you can talk about, well, why do we have these challenges? Why are we experiencing difficulties in moving into the direction of digitalization?
Why is Industry 4.0 and digitalization tricky? Why is it such a struggle? Why are projects with that failing? What are they seeing?
I think you can start with legacy equipment. You can start with manufacturing being built up, not of state-of-the-art equipment, everything bought in the last 10 years. Some of it is 15, 20, 30, 50 years old, still functioning. Presses, machinery that is now built and integrated into a more modern tech stack. And this legacy equipment and these combined with sometimes overcomplicated new IT systems.
Yeah.
They don't speak well to each other.
No, big problem.
It's actually a big problem, right? Because how can you run from top down an efficient factory if you don't have a holistic overview of your facilities?
And that's one factory, and then you sort of scale that over 50 sites, 100 sites or whatever. You've got a lot of different machines talking different languages.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you don't just go out and rip and replace and say, I understand the problem, I just need new equipment. Well, no, you can't do that. You don't have the resources to do that. So you got to find a way to sort of make that work. But what are the challenges? What are the reasons? So we got this legacy park of equipment, and we have a lot of initiatives that's set out that are creating, I would say, data silos to a large extent. So we have data over here, we have data over here. We know what the problem is here, but we don't know in connection with the value chain. In that sense, so it's very fragmented.
As you said, we've got a lot of data. People have been collecting data for a decade now, or very focused on that. But then we don't know what to do with it. We hire a bunch of data scientists to make sense of it, maybe, and it's also fragmented. So it's in silos. Yeah,
it's in silos. But let's remember, in order to stay competitive, which is where we started, you need the agility, you need the flexibility to react on the data. So getting data science in, that's great. For management, because they can create some amazing reports that we can share and recognize that we have a problem. And that's a good start. But it needs to cascade into the people that can actually mitigate the changes, do something about it on a day-to-day basis
on the shop floor.
And on the shop floor, you need that agility in your in your IT, and you need that agility across the tech stack, old equipment as well as new equipment. That's a real challenge for the plant directors. And then another major challenge that we're also talked about is the skills gap. We talked about it on the megatrends that translate directly to the shop floor. Some of the challenges related to new people standing on the production lines that have only been there for a short period of time. They don't understand the sounds, the mechanisms, the things about to go wrong, so they can do predictive maintenance by their own fault. So there's something about as a plant manager, how do we mitigate that as an organization to make sure that the people get on introduced to our facilities, are onboarded super fast, are doing the right things, are compliant, have high quality, without necessarily having extra capacity or resources to do on the job training, stand next to you for a long period of time. So again, I think so
there's the right training at the right time is maybe like for
the right training at the right time, but also the right systems to facilitate a high quality on this by the employee. By the workforce.
And it's not just for new people coming in, it's also as you bring in new software, digital systems to help reduce waste, increase efficiency and all of that, then you need to train people on it too. So massive problem. I hear about it again and again.
We see it all the time. We see it all the time. Okay, do quality checks. And they have a piece of paper where you're filling out this form where you took out a sample and you tested it for whatever, right? And then you note it down. Where's that form go? Who's looking at that? Who's analyzing that? Is that compliant? Is that adhering to high quality standards? I think there's something about, and that's just on the quality part. In order to get to that level by the operator, where they can actually fill in the form and do the adhere to the work instructions. What do those work instructions that makes them great? Where are they documented? How they've been trained? All of these things are day-to-day challenges for many of our customers, and it's conversations again that we're having out there, and there's a ton of solutions out there that can mitigate that, but there's also some of the solutions that maybe not so intuitive as an operator would like. So the employee buy-in in terms of accepting and embracing new technology. That's a big challenge as well. now I'm exposing how old I am, but I remember at some point a professor at university told me Windows 95. The 95 stands for the percentage of Windows that cannot be used for anything. Right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it was so complicated. It was created by engineers and developers that had, it was the same with the insurance plan back in the old days, or the early versions of online banking. They were so complex. They were great. They did the job.
Yeah.
But you need an education to master it. So in order to get employee buy-in, in order to make real changes on the shop floor, you need to have something that resonates with the operator on the level where the operator is at, and does the trick, right, and slim it down.
I think that the Windows 95 one's a good point, because a big thing that it brought in, like around that time, was the mouse. Like using that to, because I remember running around in DOS and trying to remember commands in DOS to get through folders and that, and to find the game I wanted to play.
Yeah. Okay.
But as soon as you had the mouse, it became a lot more, you could figure it out yourself without knowing the commands.
Yeah. But you still needed a lot of commands, right? You still do today.
Yeah.
But why don't you introduce technology that is super easy to use, super easy to deploy, and the information displays is super easy to understand?
Yeah.
So you actually create a change behavior, create a new way of working to mitigate the problem, or adhere to the quality, or collaborate better with your coworkers. So whatever is the objective of whatever technology you decide to introduce, that will swing the needle.
I remember being anti-SMSs when that came out. I was like, this isn't going to catch on. When are you going to write people all the time?
Who wants to do that?
Yeah, well, turns out it's pretty handy.
Yeah, but I think that's for a period of time. And then we got
there's always that objection. That's never going to catch on. Oh, I'm joking.
Well, tell my children that, right?
Yeah.
Text message, and I'll go, that's old school.
Yeah, people leaving audio messages.
Just an audio or a Slack or whatever, right?
So the lesson is there's going to be objection to everything. From the person introducing it point of view, you got to give people time and training to get into it. It's going to be a problem no matter what you introduce.
It's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
But if you wanna get to the end destination, and again going back to what was the objective, making money.
Yep.
What is the challenge? There's an abundance of technology available, but getting to the end destination, it's not good enough just to have the strategy and just to have the defined process. You got to get the people into the equation.
Yeah.
You got to think about the operators that's going to do this every day. It's not that they're not doing anything. They're becoming fewer and fewer in a more and more complex environment, being asked to do more and more tasks. So introducing complicated technology solutions, technological solutions, is probably not the way you want to go about it.
No.
On the contrary, you want to simplify it.
Yep.
And make the information available that matters, information available that can make you understand quickly where is the biggest problem, where do I need to go, what do I need to do.
Yep. Yeah, so those are some good points. Looking at the skill shortage and how hard it is for people to start using new processes or new technology, and the need to really consider that. And that segues us really well into, so we've talked about the meta trends, and we've talked about the challenges from that on the shop floor, the meta risks, sorry. So then what do we see this translating into in 2025? How are these risks and challenges going to affect people? What are they going to do?
Yeah. So my answer is going to be based on a great question.
Thanks,
my answer is going to be based on the conversation we're having with our customers, as well as how we interpret and see the world, coming from where we're coming from. But I definitely feel that I'm not saying we're taking a step back, but I'm sensing a strong discussion and requirement around an IT/OT integration to simplify things. It needs to be more holistic the solutions that are being implemented in the organizations. There's going to be fewer systems that can do more in order to mitigate some of the challenges that we talked about, related to complexity, related to cybersecurity, related to cost, related to employer buy-in and what have you. So that's definitely a trend we're seeing, and something that I expect will happen. Now, another thing we're seeing is this step step-by-step approach in introducing new technologies, not just force-feeding new technology to the employees, but rather taking a gradual, phased approach in the rollout, where you're making sure that the adaptation is high, the outcome is noticeable, and then introduce further steps to it.
Yeah, so people have learned a lot, right? So they've invested in this, like, this is the best-in-class tech stack or whatever. Let's roll this out.
Yeah.
Spent millions. It's gone nowhere.
It's gone absolutely nowhere.
We learned a lot from it, though.
I think absolutely, absolutely, and apply those learnings.
Yeah.
And one of the learnings is definitely that complexity and the number of features in the system is not a success criterion itself. And certainly not at the expense of adaptation and utilization of the technology that you're introducing. So I think that there's going to be a trend around breaking up the technology in different user experience or user interfaces, depending on what kind of personas or people you're catering for.
So more focused.
And certainly the organization we're talking to are very much an operator-led approach, in the acknowledgement that it's the operators that can swing the needle. It's the operators that we need to ensure implements the changes that leads to the results and objectives of the organization.
That's where stuff is made.
That's where stuff is made, right? Now, in order to do that, have fewer systems that does more. Another thing that we see a firm requirement on from our customers, but also a trend in the market is more open systems, systems that can integrate across. So if you're taking the tech stack of a manufacturing organization and looking at business applications, you're looking at execution systems, you're looking at operations systems, you're looking at intelligence systems, and you're looking at the tech stack or the equipment stack.
Yeah, like the ISA 95.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So rather than seeing that as a hierarchical setup or design, it needs to be more, again, holistic or circular and integrated. So you have the effects flowing through the different applications, and they can talk together.
Yeah.
That's certainly also a requirement and a trend that we're seeing.
Yes, because if you look at
full utilization, and it comes a little bit with the maturity of utilizing the data. Right.
Yep.
Because as we get more mature, and regardless of the challenges and introduction of IT, we are getting better and better. Right. So I'm not knocking anyone down. We're getting more and more mature in understanding the data. We do way better. But as we get more mature, we have different requirements in terms of, okay, well, this is great information. Now the operators are satisfied. Let's talk about business planning. Let's talk about scheduling. Let's talk about quality, and let's have that integration and flow of data across, if it goes up and down or go to the side or in circles.
So it's one system that they're working in to be able to do all of that ideally. I guess that's the demand.
One system to rule them all, right?
Yeah.
But for sure, fewer systems.
Integrating with,
and in pockets, one system to cater for all of the challenges for an operator, and another system to cater for all of the challenges of a quality manager.
Gotcha.
And for a plant manager.
What are their jobs?
Yeah, exactly. And then a requirement of integration across.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's an expectation. Another expectation, slightly outside this, but then again related, is initiatives to capture knowledge, retain people.
Yeah.
And make sure that we address the fact that people stay shorter and they got to perform at the same level, right? So how do we capture the knowledge that we already have? How do we onboard new people in the organization to get to the same skill level? How do we retain the knowledge from that is added throughout time? So programs and initiatives that will enhance the digital operator, or the digital operator requirements, if you want to say that. And I think that's a lot of this is. You're from New Zealand, so the tribal knowledge being passed through generation.
Yeah.
Well, it's not going to work anymore. It's still going to be there, but we gotta automate that.
Oral history. Yeah, it's a lot easier to track when it's written down.
The last trend, and this is in its infancy, but the last trend that everyone's talking about is what about artificial intelligence? What about machine learning?
Yeah,
and
hot topic.
and it's there, right?
Yeah.
I think it's definitely there. There's certainly a lot of talk about it. What are you doing, or what should we be doing?
Yeah, you're getting it from the
start?
investor side, from the customer side. Like, what's happening? AI. I hear a lot about it.
We're getting everywhere from all sides, and I think it's a valid point because if we're talking about the transition from Industry 4.0 to Industry 5.0, artificial intelligence is going to be the bridge. It's going to be the thing that makes that change. I think that's understandable. But where do you get started as an organization? Yeah. That's the tricky thing. You have all the data. How do you set the data up for success? How do you set it up to be used in a co-pilot modus or in a learning cycle with large language models or things like that? There's a lot of talk and initiatives around that. Again, many people will understand the hype cycle of new technology.
Yeah. Digital twins, whatever. Big data, that was a big one recently.
Big data was a thing. Digital twins, machine translation, we both have a history of where that was a big thing.
Yeah, working on a language platform.
Exactly. I think what is important to recognize as we get super hyped about artificial intelligence is that we still need a lot of use cases. We still need to go through a lot of failed projects and trial and errors before you get to the point where the success cases are lined up and we understand how to embrace and incorporate this new technology. Yeah. But for sure, I'm expecting a lot of tests and proof of concepts being made in the market in the next now. And the next many years going forward.
Yeah, but I think people realize now it's not going to solve all the problems next year or whatever. It's
like the text messages. It's here to stay.
It's here to stay. AI is here to stay, but it's also, it's there's some small stuff maybe coming next year, but it's like keeping that long-term picture with AI, right? Yeah.
I think those are some of the things I would. That's for sure what we're expecting.
Okay.
And what we're talking into.
Well, that was a really good chat. I know you've got another meeting to run off to, so I'll let you get off the hot seat. And that's the end of season 1 for Factbird's Manufacturing Matters podcast. And I'll leave it at that. I'll see you next season, 2025. We'll see if you're right.
I'm excited.
Yeah, me too, actually. I'm excited. I've got a little holiday at home in New Zealand first, so that's going to be a good little segment. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Season 1 over. Thanks, Søren.
Thank you.